Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something a little unusual and maybe even a little reckless. A walk beneath a sky so wide it feels like you're strolling on the blank page of a storybook. The stars are shimmering, the air is cool, and the ground under your feet has that quiet crunch of dried grass after a long day. You're out here because, well, let's be honest, sometimes you can't sleep, and a walk seems less risky than scrolling on your phone for the 10th time. Although, let's be real, you probably won't survive this journey. Don't worry, not in the dramatic horror movie sense, more in the you'll drift off into a nap halfway through the adventure sense. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you are right now. Drop your location and local time in the comments. It's oddly comforting to imagine all of us scattered across the world listening to the same sleepy tale at wildly different hours. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The stars above you spread across the heavens like spilled salt on black velvet. You look up, tracing constellations you only half remember from a classroom lesson or maybe a trivia night you barely won. Orion, maybe, or something that looks suspiciously like a giant spoon. The kind of night sky that makes you think, wow, we are incredibly small, and also, why did I forget a jacket? The meadow you wander through feels soft underfoot, like a carpet woven by someone who clearly ignored their deadline. Grass sways, whispering secrets to the wind, and every once in a while, a cricket chirps with the confidence of a Broadway soloist. For a moment, it's almost enough to lull you back home. But then, something odd. You pause mid-step because the ground doesn't just feel soft, it feels hollow. As if beneath your weight there's something more than soil. You shift, pressing your heel down. The earth seems to give a faint echo, like knocking on a door. And now your curiosity has completely taken the wheel. Here's a funny thing about humans. Historically, we've always been drawn to holes in the ground, caves, wells, tunnels, the occasional rabbit burrow that drags you into Wonderland. We just can't resist. Archaeologists have found Neolithic sites where people dug carefully into the earth, perhaps searching for spirits, perhaps looking for snacks. Folklorists still argue whether ancient hollow hills in Celtic myth were just geographical quirks or if they were doorways to the realms of the fair folk. Even today, geologists bicker over whether some collapsed craters in northern Europe are meteor strikes or the footprints of vanished glaciers. And here you are, adding your own puzzled frown to this long scholarly debate. Because when you take a step back, the shape beneath your feet isn't random at all. It's curved, rounded at the edges, with a defined depression in the center. You tilt your head, tracing the outline as the moonlight brushes the ground. It's a footprint. Not just any footprint, it's colossal. The kind of footprint that could belong to someone tall enough to brush the stars when they sneeze. Each toe indentation could hold a small barn, the arches wide enough for a marketplace. You laugh softly to yourself because honestly, who leaves behind something like this and just walks off? It's like dropping your phone in the middle of the street and never going back for it. Of course, folklore is littered with giants. The Norse had frost giants stomping across icy plains, the Greeks had their lumbering children of the earth, and the Irish spoke of Finn McCool, who allegedly built a causeway out of sheer stubbornness. Historians can't decide whether these stories came from ancient memories of enormous prehistoric bones, maybe mammoths, maybe dinosaurs, or if humanity just needed a bigger scapegoat for why the mountains suddenly looked dented. Whatever the case, giants have always loomed at the edge of our imagination, and tonight you're standing in one of their steps. The air shifts, a breeze curling low to the grass as if even the wind knows it's treading on something old.
You crouch, running your hand along the packed soil, and you notice something even stranger. The texture isn't just dirt, it shimmers faintly, like moonlight caught in sand. You rub your fingertips together, and it leaves a glow, a faint trace, the way a glow stick lingers after a concert. Great, now you're glowing. Very subtle, nothing suspicious about glowing hands in the middle of the night. Totally fine. But here's the kicker. You lean closer, pressing your ear to the earth. And there it is again, that echo. Except now, it's not just a hollow thud, it's ringing. Almost like a bell, or maybe a deep hum resonating far below the surface. You pull back quickly, blinking. Did you just imagine that? Possibly, but then possibly not, because just as you stand again, the grass rustles, and the shape of the footprint seems to deepen under the moonlight, the depression becoming clearer, like someone under the soil is carefully brushing it into focus for you. And if you squint, if you really let your eyes adjust, you can almost see something glimmering in the depths. Structures, maybe. Towers. Like a reflection on water, except it's beneath the dirt itself. A whole tiny kingdom tucked away as if the footprint opened not just the ground, but a door. You inhale slowly, your heart giving a little leap that's equal parts wonder and, let's be real, sleep-deprived paranoia. A kingdom beneath the footprint. That's either the plot of the weirdest animated movie never made, or it's where your night walk just turned into a bedtime story you didn't know you were starring in. And you know what? You keep walking toward it, because this is the kind of night where even your shadow seems to nod and say, "Yeah, sure, why not? Let's see where this goes."
The hollow ground keeps pulling at your thoughts as you pace slowly along its rim. You trace the indentation, and the longer you walk, the clearer it becomes. This is no random dent, no farmer's plow mistake, no quirky erosion. It's deliberate, precise, stamped into the land like an enormous seal. A footprint so vast you could lay down your whole house in its heel and still have space for a community barbecue. You stop, grinning at the absurdity of it. Imagine explaining that to your neighbor. "Sorry about the fence, Steve. It was flattened by a mythological sandal." You crouch again, fingertips brushing the edge where grass meets pressed soil. The indentation stretches far, its shape unmistakable. Toes at one end, each the size of fishing boats. The ball of the foot curves smoothly into the long arch. And the heel? Deep and rounded, dips so low that shadows pool there like water. The ground itself seems to sigh beneath your touch, as if it remembers the weight that once pressed it down. You lean back, looking across the meadow, and notice something even stranger. There's not just one footprint. A little further ahead, half shrouded by weeds and wildflowers, another depression mirrors the first. Then another beyond that, as if a colossal figure once strolled casually across this very plain, leaving behind a trail of forgotten steps. It's a path, a giant's forgotten trail. Folklore, of course, is riddled with these sorts of legends. Ancient Greece spoke of the Gigantes, towering children of Gaia who battled the gods in a war so loud that thunder was said to be its lingering echo. In Norse myth, frost giants sprawled across icy mountains, bickering with Odin and his kin. And in the British Isles, stories of giants explained odd hill formations and strangely massive stones. One tale insists that a giant used a local mountain range as stepping stones because, naturally, he couldn't be bothered to walk around. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some folklorists believe these myths were born when ordinary people stumbled across enormous fossils. Mastodon bones mistaken for shin bones, or mammoth skulls misread as the heads of enormous humanoids. You find yourself wondering if you're caught in that same human impulse, reading too much into the land because your brain wants giants to be real. Then again, geologists still debate whether certain strange depressions in Europe are the result of glaciers, meteors, or something else entirely. They roll their eyes at giant footprints, but they can't agree on the alternative either. You smirk. Folklorists argue about whether a giant existed, geologists argue about whether ice or rocks did it, and here you are, in the middle of the night, glowing faintly from weird moonlit dirt, walking along the outline of toes the size of cottages. Sometimes it's best to let the evidence speak for itself. You keep walking along the curve of the print, the grass brushing against your legs. The trail continues, each indentation following the last, almost rhythmic, like musical notes pressed into the earth. You imagine a giant's stride, slow, deliberate, each step a sentence in a story you're only now beginning to read. As you wander, the hollowness beneath your feet grows stronger. You test it, stomp lightly, and the ground gives off a faint reverberation, a low hum like the far-off strike of a gong. Your laugh bursts into the night air. Great, the land has surround sound. The crickets pause briefly, as if to judge your sense of humor, before resuming their performance. By now, your curiosity has evolved into something stubborn. You want to know not just where these prints lead, but what they mean. Because, admit it, part of you suspects this isn't merely ground compressed by weight. It feels like a map, an invitation. The moonlight angles across the meadow, painting silver across the shallow depressions. And there, in the heel of the second print, you notice something shimmering faintly. Not the glow from before, but a deeper radiance, like starlight caught in water. You squint, heart quickening. The light pulses gently, beckoning. You climb down carefully into the depression. The ground here is cool, softer than the grass above, like sand that's been sifted and smoothed. The glow pulses again, stronger now, and when you kneel, you see it clearly. A thin fissure running through the center of the footprint, narrow but deep. From it, light seeps like breath escaping a sleeping giant. You press your palm over the crack. The earth vibrates faintly. Not hostile, more like a purr. And in that vibration you almost hear words. Not clear, not yet, but syllables straining to reach the surface. You pull back, startled, your pulse thrumming. You glance around at the meadow, suddenly aware of how silent it has become. The crickets have hushed. Even the breeze seems to wait. You whisper, almost without realizing, "Is somebody down there?" The fissure gives a single low thrum in reply. There's a phrase in old European folklore, the hollow hills. According to some tales, these were not just natural rises of earth, but entrances to realms hidden beneath, homes to fairies, elves, and forgotten kingdoms. Some stories warn against entering inside. You might enter for what feels like a day and return centuries later. Scholars can't agree whether the phrase came from actual caves or was just poetic metaphor for the unseen. But either way, the hollow hills have always promised one thing: the world beneath is closer than you think. And tonight, you've stumbled across your own hollow hill, except it isn't a hill at all, it's the imprint of a giant step. The glow flickers once more, steady and patient, like a candle waiting to be carried. And you find yourself smiling, because of course the trail wasn't just here to be admired. It's a breadcrumb path, a doorway disguised as a footprint, pointing the way to a kingdom hidden below. And maybe it's reckless, maybe it's absurd, maybe it's the kind of decision you'll blame later on sleep deprivation. But you know what you're about to do. You're going to follow it down. The glow inside the giant's heel deepens, like a lantern slowly lifting its shade. You stand there for a moment, hand half raised, debating whether this is brave curiosity or just you reenacting every bad decision in folklore. You know the type. And then the traveler touched the glowing fissure, and that's why no one has seen him since. But let's be honest. You're too far into the story now to walk away. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Don't answer that. You crouch again, brushing aside strands of grass. The fissure widens almost imperceptibly, sighing like an old door that hasn't been opened in centuries. Light spills out, not harsh, not blinding, but soft and golden, like late afternoon sunlight trapped underground. You lean closer, and that faint vibration hums again, steady as a heartbeat. And then you see it. Far below the crack, beyond the shimmering glow, are shapes, delicate spires, roofs curved like seashells, towers that look impossibly thin yet sturdy, as if woven from glass. You blink hard, thinking your imagination is getting ahead of you, but no, the more you stare, the more the image sharpens. It's not just your mind filling in details. There is a kingdom beneath the earth, a whole glittering city crouched inside the impression of a single footprint. It's not the first time humanity has whispered about hidden worlds below. The Greeks spun tales of the underworld, though theirs was more shadowy than glowing. Medieval legends whispered of Agartha, a city at the Earth's core, where advanced beings lived in perpetual harmony. Even Jules Verne, bless his optimistic sense of adventure, imagined explorers descending through volcanic tubes to find prehistoric landscapes alive and well. Scholars still debate whether these hollow earth tales were metaphorical, mystical, or just a creative excuse for people to avoid paying taxes by claiming they lived underground. But tonight, you're staring at something that refuses to stay metaphorical. This isn't just myth. It's right there, flickering under your feet, as real as the grass brushing your arms. You press both hands against the fissure. The glow responds, brightening just enough to outline a path, a descending slope carved into the very soil. You hadn't noticed it before, but now the way downward is obvious, as if it had been waiting for you to realize it. You hesitate long enough to think, well, if anyone asks tomorrow where I went, following a glowing crack into a giant's footprint kingdom will sound perfectly reasonable. Then you step forward. The earth shifts under your weight, not collapsing, but unfolding, like fabric being drawn aside. The fissure expands just wide enough for you to slip through. Cool air wafts up, tinged with moss, and something faintly metallic, like silver warmed by moonlight. You shiver, partly from the chill, partly from the thrill of walking into a place you're fairly certain doesn't exist on any map app. You lower yourself carefully, your shoes crunching softly on the slope. It isn't steep, more like a spiraling ramp, curling inward toward the glow. The walls on either side shimmer faintly with threads of crystal, pulsing gently as you pass, as if acknowledging your arrival. You laugh under your breath. Nice to meet you too, bioluminescent dirt. As you descend, the kingdom becomes clearer. The walls of the passage thin, and through translucent stone you glimpse whole districts lit by strange lanterns, waterways that gleam like quicksilver, and bridges arched delicately between towers. The scale surprises you. It's smaller than you'd expect. Not giant-sized at all, but human, even cozy. Entire streets could fit comfortably within the toe of the footprint above. That realization sends your mind spinning. If giants once walked here, then this city wasn't theirs. It was someone else's. Someone who built safely within the very depressions of their steps. The footprint didn't destroy the land, it shaped it, protected it like a natural fortress. History has a habit of hiding little civilizations within bigger ones. Ancient cliff dwellings tucked inside canyon walls, entire underground cities in Cappadocia, Turkey, carved to shield people from invaders. Folklorists point to these real marvels as possible roots of hidden kingdom tales. But the funny thing, scholars still argue whether those underground settlements were purely practical or if their builders also believed they were closer to the divine. Tonight, standing here, you can't help siding with the divine theory, because the sight below is nothing short of miraculous. You pause halfway down the slope, leaning against the wall, just to take it in. The kingdom is alive. Tiny lanterns sway in the air, bobbing gently as though stirred by some invisible tide. Figures move across the streets. Shadows of people, perhaps? Or something else? You can't quite tell at this distance, but their presence is undeniable. And there, at the center of it all, a fountain rises, spraying not water, but beams of light that arc gracefully and dissolve into glittering mist. You grin, whispering, "Okay, this definitely beats Netflix." The ramp curves one last time, and the fissure above narrows behind you, closing just enough that the meadow feels far away now, like a half-forgotten dream. All around you is glow and hum, and that strange vibrating heartbeat of the place itself. And you realize something. You're not just a wanderer anymore. You're a guest. The kingdom beneath the footprint has noticed you, and it's waiting. The path narrows until you're pressing one hand against the wall for balance. The glow isn't blinding, but it's constant, like walking inside a lantern. You half expect to bump into a moth the size of a car, but thankfully nothing winged flutters at your face. Instead, the wall beneath your palm feels warm. Not stone warm, but pulse warm, as though this place isn't carved at all, but alive. You try not to think about the possibility that you're basically crawling through someone's glowing artery. Finally, the ramp opens into a chamber. You stop short, blinking. Right there in front of you, half sunken into the side of the footprint's wall, is a door. Not wood, not metal. Stone. Heavy, moss-covered stone, fitted with seams so fine they could almost vanish. The moss itself gives off a faint glow, casting the chamber in emerald light. It's not just clinging to the surface, it thrives here, soft and thick, as though it's been growing undisturbed for centuries. You reach out and brush your fingers against it. The texture is damp and springy, cool to the touch, but when you pull your hand away, your fingertips gleam faintly green, as if dipped in paint. The door doesn't have a handle. No latch, no lock, no hinges visible. Just a flat surface, carved smooth, its face broken only by faint, swirling patterns. Circles within circles, spirals upon spirals. You lean closer, squinting. They aren't decorative, not really. They look familiar. Footprints. Hundreds of overlapping footprints, spiraled together, pressed into stone. You chuckle nervously. Great, so it's a theme door. In history, moss has had an oddly poetic role. Ancient healers praised it for its softness, using it to bandage wounds when cloth was scarce. In Norse sagas, moss was considered sacred to spirits of the forest, an offering placed near shrines. And in Japanese gardens, moss is cultivated like a living memory, fragile, ancient, timeless. Scholars still debate whether its prominence in folklore comes from its resilience or its quiet beauty. You, meanwhile, are mostly debating whether it's sanitary that your hand now glows like a cheap glow stick. You press your palm against the stone. At first, nothing, just the chill of rock beneath moss. But then the spirals shimmer faintly, and a sound like exhaling rushes through the chamber. The moss brightens, spreading light outward in ripples, and with a deep, grinding sigh, the stone door shifts.
Not swinging outward, sliding downward, as though sinking back into the earth itself. Behind it, darkness yawns. You freeze. Not because it's frightening, though, let's be real, your survival instincts are tugging at your sleeve, but because the darkness isn't empty. It glitters faintly, as though hundreds of fireflies hover just beyond, and then the breeze hits you. Cool, damp, tinged with minerals and something faintly floral, like lilies carried underground. It's the smell of a place that's been sealed off from the surface world for longer than you can fathom. You step forward, because of course you do. You've come this far, and honestly, the moss isn't the kind of doorman you want to disappoint. The chamber beyond reveals itself slowly, like your eyes are still adjusting. The walls curve in arches, ribbed with natural stone that's been polished smooth by centuries of water. Veins of crystal thread across them, pulsing softly, like constellations stitched into the rock. And lining the passage are lanterns. Not crafted lanterns, living ones. Clusters of moss suspended midair, glowing in hues of green and blue, each swaying gently as though stirred by a breeze that isn't there. You reach for one, curiosity getting the better of you, and laugh quietly when it floats just out of reach, bobbing upward like a balloon avoiding a child's grab. "Okay," you whisper. "You win." The corridor extends forward, illuminated by these moss lanterns. The air hums faintly, vibrating in your chest. It's not unpleasant. It's the kind of sound you feel more than hear, like the low thrum of a cat's purr pressed against your ribs. And it guides you forward, step by step, until you're deep inside the footprints world. There's a quirky tidbit you remember. Bioluminescent fungi. Real surface world stuff. Certain mushrooms glow faintly in forests at night, earning them the nickname foxfire. They don't do it to look magical. They're probably attracting insects to spread spores. But to the humans who stumbled upon them centuries ago, those glowing fungi were signs of enchantment. Shakespeare even hinted at them in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Folklorists can't quite agree whether early fairy light legends came from these glowing mushrooms or from swamp gas igniting. Either way, glowing plants have long been shorthand for magic is happening here. And now here you are, surrounded by moss lanterns bobbing like polite fireflies, lighting your path to a kingdom hidden beneath a giant step. The corridor narrows once more, then flares open into a balcony. You step out and gasp softly. Below you lies the kingdom proper, stretching across the hollow of the footprint, towers and bridges and shimmering streets glowing with their own inner light. The air is alive with sound, a distant rush like waves, or perhaps a chorus of whispers rising together. It's overwhelming, breathtaking, impossible. You grip the railing, heart hammering, and laugh, shaking your head. Yep, totally normal night walk. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But even as you joke, you feel it. The kingdom isn't just beneath your feet anymore. It's around you, watching, waiting. And the door has sealed itself shut behind you.
The balcony feels like the front row seat to a secret opera. Below, the kingdom sprawls across the hollow like a galaxy curled in on itself. Streets curve in spirals, lined with buildings that seem more grown than built, stone shaped like coral, rooftops blooming upward like petals, arches braided with vines that glow faintly. And lighting it all are the lanterns. Not ordinary flam lanterns, but clusters of living moss suspended in midair, glowing in shades of emerald, cobalt, and silver. They drift lazily, as though tethered by invisible strings, illuminating the city with a softness that no candle or bulb could imitate. It's light that feels alive, warm, soothing, as though it wants you to be comfortable here. You lean over the balcony rail, craning your neck to catch every detail. Bridges of translucent stone arc gracefully between towers, glittering faintly with embedded crystals. A fountain in the distance sprays upward, scattering light like shattered stars. The sound you heard earlier, half whisper, half ocean, resolves itself now into a chorus of currents. Streams of water that slip between the streets, carrying silvery ripples that reflect the moss light above. And just when you think the view has given all it can, you notice movement. Small shapes drifting in the air, darting between lanterns, wings humming softly. You squint, then laugh under your breath. Fireflies. Dozens of them, glowing gold among the green-blue moss. Except, no, wait, not fireflies. Their wings are longer, feathered almost, and when one hovers closer, you see its body isn't insect at all, but something stranger, like a hummingbird carved from crystal, its glow powered by veins of light running through translucent skin. Wow, you murmur. Somebody forgot to tell evolution about these. It's not the first time people have imagined glowing creatures guiding their way. In Japanese folklore, hitodama, or spirit flames, were said to appear as floating lights at night, thought to be wandering souls. In Ireland, will-o'-the-wisps lured travelers into bogs, either mischievous fairies or lost spirits, depending on who you asked. And there are even historical records of soldiers in World War I reporting angel glow in their wounds, a harmless glowing fungus that likely saved lives by killing bacteria. Scholars debate whether those strange battlefield lights were fungus, folklore, or something stranger. But you're standing on a balcony staring at glowing hummingbirds made of crystal and debating whether this is biology, myth, or the world's fanciest nightlight. The path from the balcony leads downward, carved into the wall in gentle switchbacks. Moss lanterns float ahead of you, bobbing like guides, never too far, never too close. The railing along the path is cool beneath your hand, etched with spiraling symbols that echo the patterns you saw on the moss door. You run your fingers along them absent-mindedly, and to your surprise, they hum faintly in response, a vibration running up your arm. Halfway down, you pause to rest, leaning against the wall. From here, the kingdom's scale becomes clearer. It isn't vast like a surface city, it's intimate, compressed, every street winding inward toward the fountain at the center. You notice small boats drifting along the silver waterways, each glowing faintly as if their hulls are carved from pearl. And the figures piloting them, humanoid but slender, their movements almost too smooth. Their silhouettes blur at the edges like they're half made of the same light that powers the lanterns. Your throat goes dry, but not in fear. It's awe. The kind of awe that makes you forget to breathe until your lungs tug at you. You whisper, "So this is what's been hiding under a footprint." The figures don't seem to notice you, or maybe they do, and they're politely pretending not to. That feels right. This place has the vibe of a library where everyone knows you don't point out the obvious. By the time your feet touch the street level, you're surrounded. Not surrounded in a threatening way, more like being swept gently into a dream. Moss lanterns bob above your head, casting green halos on the stone. The buildings loom close, but not oppressive, their walls smooth and slightly warm under your fingertips, as if they breathe faintly. And every so often, a crystal hummingbird darts past, wings buzzing like a lullaby. You step onto a street paved not with cobblestones, but with overlapping tiles shaped like footprints. Each tile glow faintly, their light shifting under your weight, responding to your step. You pause, staring down, and laugh. Interactive flooring, take that, IKEA. There's a mainstream fact you recall. Ancient Roman roads, still intact in some places, were made by carefully layering stone so the weight of travelers pressed them tighter over time. Meanwhile, a quirky tidbit, historians found a Maya city in Guatemala where roads were covered with a white plaster that reflected moonlight, making them visible at night. Folklorists, of course, can't agree if the idea of glowing roads in myths came from places like that or if it was purely symbolic of divine pathways. But here, there's no debate. The streets beneath your feet glow gently, responding to each step like the city itself is noticing you. And for the first time since you descended, you realize you've been invited in.
You're not walking long before you realize you're being followed. Not stalked, there's no menace in it, but trailed. The faintest flutter of wings shadows your footsteps, the occasional rustle just at the edge of your hearing. You stop, tilt your head, and the sound stops too. You grin. "All right, come out, Scooby-Doo villain." And then, from behind a nearby column, hops the least threatening stalker imaginable, a sparrow. Well, a sparrow-shaped something. Its feathers glint as if each one has been dusted with powdered glass, catching the moss light in a shimmer. Its eyes are enormous, round as polished onyx, and when it opens its beak, the voice that comes out is not chirp, but words. "Traveler," it says, in a tone far too formal for such a tiny body. "You walk roads not meant for strangers." You blink. "Well, technically I stumbled into them. Does that earn me half credit?" The sparrow cocks its head, unimpressed. "Answer me 3 questions and I will tell you where to go." Of course it's riddles, of course. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice mutters, "This is exactly why Alice should have skipped Wonderland." The sparrow flutters onto a glowing tile in front of you, puffing its chest with self-importance. "First, what is lighter than breath, yet heavier than stone when lost?" You chew your lip, pretending to struggle, though the answer comes easily enough. Hope. Lose it, and you're crushed. The sparrow twitches a wing. Acceptable. "Acceptable?" you protest. "That was poetry. Give me some points." Unmoved, it continues. "Second, what has been broken more times than promised, yet still sought by all?" You snort. "A good night's sleep." The sparrow actually blinks at that, ruffled. "That is unorthodox. The intended answer was trust. Trust, sleep, same problem. Everyone says they want it, nobody manages it." The sparrow gives a long, slow blink that radiates, "This is why riddles have rules," then sighs. "Third, what hides in silence but shouts when named?" This one is trickier. You tap your temple, pacing a step, and then it clicks. A secret. The sparrow bows, wings fanning dramatically. "Well enough, you may proceed." It's funny, riddles like this pop up everywhere in history. Ancient Sumerian tablets contain the earliest recorded riddles, one of which literally asks, "There is a house. One enters it blind and comes out seeing. What is it?" Spoiler, the answer is a school, proving even 4,000 years ago kids weren't thrilled about education. Folklorists argue that riddles served as oral tests of wit, ensuring only the clever could navigate certain stories. Yet scholars still debate whether they ever truly were tests or just playful storytelling devices. Here, though, the sparrow takes them very seriously, and judging by the way the tiles beneath it glow brighter, the city seems to agree. You crouch down, meeting the little bird's gaze. "So, where exactly am I supposed to go?" The sparrow hops twice, then takes flight, circling your head with a shimmer of feathers. "Follow me," it declares. "The river will tell the rest." You sigh dramatically. Great, nothing ominous about rivers underground. The sparrow doesn't wait. It darts ahead, weaving between moss lanterns, wings leaving faint trails of light like chalk lines in the air. You jog a few steps to keep up, the glowing footprints beneath your shoes rippling with each stride. The city seems to shift as you move,
Streets you thought curved away suddenly open before you. Archways appear where there was only wall. The sparrow leads confidently, unbothered by the labyrinthine layout. At one point, it perches on a signpost etched with curling glyphs that look suspiciously like bird tracks. You can't help muttering, "Of course you guys get street signs." Eventually, the sound reaches you first. A hush, steady and endless, like whispers layered on top of one another. Then the air dampens, cool against your skin. You turn a corner and stop short. The river glimmers before you. Not wide, but endless. Its surface a sheet of liquid silver, rippling with reflections of lanterns above. It doesn't just flow, it sings, each ripple carrying a faint note, the collective current rising into a wordless melody. The sparrow alights on your shoulder, voice gentler now. The river remembers. It will tell you what the people forget. You swallow hard, because you know, you're not just here to see, you're here to listen. And as you step closer, the river's song sharpens, whispering your name.
The river's surface quivers as though it's alive, every ripple catching moss light and bending it into quicksilver patterns. You kneel down at its edge, cautious but curious, peering into the current. Instead of your reflection, you see, well, not you. Not exactly. Shapes flicker across the water, faces you almost recognize, scenes that feel like déjà vu. The first image, a child chasing fireflies across a meadow, barefoot, laughter echoing. The scene stirs something familiar in your chest, though you're sure you've never lived it. The second, a crowd gathered around a bonfire, singing in a language you don't understand. The third, a traveler, alone, cloak heavy, but walking with the same tilt of the head that you yourself have. The sparrow on your shoulder clicks its beak. These are echoes. The river remembers what people forget. I whisper, and I'm supposed to... what? Karaoke with it? The sparrow doesn't dignify that with a reply. The melody rising from the current is subtle, a braid of whispers. You lean closer, and for a dizzying moment, you hear words among the tones. We were here. We are still here. Walk carefully. It's unsettling and beautiful all at once, like eavesdropping on history's dream journal. Historically, rivers have always been more than water. To the Greeks, the Styx bound oaths between gods. In Norse mythology, Gjöll flowed near the underworld's gates, echoing with the dead's voices. And in many indigenous traditions, rivers are ancestors themselves, living beings that remember, teach, and carry. Scholars debate whether these beliefs emerged because water literally preserves echoes of sound. Scientists say yes, water can carry vibration. Or because humans can't help but assign memory to things that outlast them. And here you are, kneeling beside one that actually talks back. You dip your fingertips into the current. It's cool, almost icy, but the chill isn't painful, it's clarifying, like plunging your hand into a bucket of mountain spring water. The river reacts instantly. Light ripples outward from your touch, then loops back, circling your hand like bracelets of silver. The whispers sharpen, louder now. They speak fragments, lost lullabies, forgotten names, a half-finished recipe for bread. You laugh at that last one. Okay, whoever dropped the recipe, I hope it wasn't important. Unless it was pizza dough, then I'm furious. The sparrow tilts its head, unimpressed. It is not for you to mock the echoes. Listen, buddy, I mock everything. It's a coping strategy. The current tugs at you, not physically, but mentally. Thoughts rise that aren't yours. memories of places you've never stood, feelings you've never felt. A farewell whispered at the edge of a battlefield. A lullaby hummed in a tongue you don't know, but your heart seems to. A joke told between two children, giggling, their laughter dissolving into the silver. For a moment, it's overwhelming. You squeeze your eyes shut, gripping the stone bank to ground yourself, and then the voices fade, coalescing into one soft, steady tone. Traveler, the river says, as if it knows you. You carry no crown, you carry no oath, yet your step stirs the footprints. You open one eye. Translation: I'm crashing a party? The sparrow fluffs its feathers indignantly. It means you are unexpected. Yeah, I get that a lot. A quirky tidbit floats into your mind. In medieval Europe, people used to believe rivers could erase sins if you whispered them into the current. Some even carried water from the River Jordan back in flasks, convinced it held special cleansing powers. Folklorists still argue if these traditions were literal belief or metaphorical practice. But standing here, with silver water whispering forgotten truths, it feels less like superstition and more like common sense. The river shifts again, and this time, the current pushes something tangible to the surface. A fragment of stone, smooth, etched with spirals like those on the moss door. You pluck it carefully from the water, holding it in your palm. It glows faintly, warm against your skin, as if it's alive. The sparrow hops down your arm, peering at it. The river has marked you. Now you must follow its song. I sigh, slipping the fragment into my pocket. Guess I'm on the VIP list now. And as I rise, the river swells behind me, singing my name on its surface like a leaf.
The stone in your pocket hums faintly, like a phone on vibrate, but instead of texts, it's buzzing with memory. You can almost feel it syncing with your pulse, your heartbeat adjusting to match its rhythm. The sparrow on your shoulder gives you a look that says, "Yup, you're stuck with it now." "Cool," you mutter. "First time I've ever been adopted by geology." The sparrow doesn't laugh. It never laughs. The path beyond the river slopes inward, toward what feels like the heart of the kingdom. The streets narrow, the glowing footprint tiles packed tighter, each step releasing brighter ripples. Moss lanterns drift lower here, as though guiding you intentionally. The city seems aware of your progress, like it's leaning closer to see what you'll do next. You follow the sparrow down a tunnel carved with spirals that look suspiciously like the ones on your stone. Every few feet, the sparrow pauses to peck at a marking, and each time the wall hums softly in reply. You get the sense it's less a guide and more a translator. The tunnel opens suddenly into a cavernous chamber, and you nearly trip on the threshold. At its center rises a tree. It's not just any tree, it's enormous, easily as tall as the surface oaks you've picnicked under, yet somehow it fits comfortably inside this subterranean chamber. Its trunk gleams silver, bark veined with light. Its branches stretch outward like chandeliers, dripping with luminous leaves that shift color slowly, emerald, then sapphire, then a warm amber glow. Every leaf seems to hum faintly, the combined sound forming a low, calming chord that fills the space like background music. "Okay," you whisper. "Someone's been messing with Photoshop saturation down here." The sparrow bows low, tiny wings fanned dramatically. Behold the memory tree. Its roots reach into every footprint, binding the kingdom to the giant who made it. You tilt your head, so it's like a family tree but with Wi-Fi. "Your tongue is careless," the sparrow snaps, but its eyes glimmer as though it almost enjoyed the joke. Trees have always been storytellers in disguise. The Norse spoke of Yggdrasil, the world tree binding realms together.
In Celtic tradition, oak and ash trees were gateways to other worlds. Even in science, dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, lets us literally read the years of history inside wood. Scholars still debate whether world tree myths arose separately across cultures, or whether they stemmed from some ancient shared memory of how central trees were to human survival. Here, the debate doesn't matter. This tree hums history right into your bones. You step closer, hand outstretched. The leaves shift color in response, glowing brighter where your shadow falls. One drops suddenly, drifting in a slow spiral toward you. Instinctively, you catch it. The moment your fingers close around it, you're somewhere else. Not physically, you're still standing in the cavern, but your senses tilt sideways. You're in a bustling marketplace, lit by moss lanterns, surrounded by people with shimmering silhouettes. Their voices overlap in 100 conversations, laughter mingling with the clink of crystal hummingbirds hovering overhead. You smell bread, sweet, spiced, and hear a child's giggle as she tugs at her mother's glowing robe. Then it fades. You're back by the tree. Leaf still glowing in your hand. You swallow hard. Okay, that was Netflix flashback levels of vivid. The sparrow nods solemnly. The tree keeps what the people cannot. Every leaf holds memory. You glance up, and suddenly the countless leaves overhead feel overwhelming. So this is basically the world's biggest hard drive. A quirky tidbit pops into your brain. In 17th century Europe, some scholars believed memory worked like wax tablets, impressions pressed in and fading over time. Others argued it was like a library, full of scrolls waiting to be reread. Folklorists still bicker over whether myths about memory trees were metaphors for this kind of mental filing system, or if people truly believed trees were archives. Here, though, there's no metaphor. The archive is real, and you've just checked out your first book. The sparrow hops closer. The tree has acknowledged you. That is rare. Few outside the kingdom touch its memory and remain themselves. Thanks, you say, unsure if that's a compliment or a warning. You slip the leaf carefully into your pocket beside the stone. They hum together faintly, harmonizing like two instruments warming up. And you realize, whatever story you've walked into, you're now carrying its receipts. The sparrow spreads its wings. The tree has given you witness. Now it will send you to the listener. You sigh. Great. First riddles, then karaoke river, now a magical HR meeting. Sure, why not? And as you follow the sparrow deeper, the memory tree's glow fades behind you, but its hum lingers in your chest, steady as your own breath.
The sparrow leads you down another curling passage, narrower than the others. The glowing footprint tiles dim here, and the air grows cooler, heavier. Each step sounds louder than it should, echoing against the curved walls. It feels less like walking through a city, and more like descending into someone's ear canal, except instead of wax, it's lined with spiraling glyphs. Comforting thought, right? You mutter, if this ends with me inside a giant's brain, I'm asking for a refund. The sparrow, predictably, ignores you. At the tunnel's end, you emerge into a chamber unlike any before. It isn't glowing with moss or humming with leaves. It's quiet, eerily so. The walls are smooth stone, polished to the point where they almost shine, reflecting faint versions of yourself standing all around. And in the center sits a figure. Not sitting like a throne, not standing guard, just sitting cross-legged on the floor, back straight, hands resting on knees. At first, you think it's carved from stone, but then it shifts slightly, and you realize it's alive. Its body is lean, translucent, its veins glowing faintly like rivers beneath skin. Its face is indistinct, shifting like smoke in a draft, but its eyes are steady, two soft lights that fix on you with unnerving patience. The sparrow bows. Traveler, the listener awaits. You whisper back, cool, any chance the listener also happens to be the talker? The sparrow, predictably, ignores you. The listener's voice rises, not from its mouth, but from the air itself, low, resonant, like someone plucking the thickest string of a harp.
You carry leaf and stone. You carry memory. You shift your weight awkwardly. Yeah, they followed me home. Promise I'll feed them and everything. A faint flicker moves across the listener's face, almost a smile, or maybe just the light rearranging itself. You have stepped into footprints that are not yours. Why? You open your mouth, then close it. Why are you here? Curiosity? Bad luck? An incredibly pushy sparrow? Instead, you answer honestly, because the ground broke open and I didn't stop walking. The listener tilts its head, and still you walk. In myths across cultures, there's always someone like this, the listener, the keeper, the one who doesn't act so much as absorb. In West African folklore, the griot held the oral memory of generations. In ancient Greece, oracles like Delphi didn't decide futures, they just spoke what was already known. Folklorists debate whether these figures represent history itself, or whether they're simply narrative devices to move the clueless hero along. But here, the listener feels like both. A historian with the patience of stone. A mirror that hums back whatever you say. The listener rises fluidly, unfolding to its full height, taller than you, but not imposing. Its translucent body ripples faintly with color like northern lights trapped under skin. It steps closer, and without asking permission, touches 2 fingers to your forehead. Your mind lights up like someone plugged it into a socket. For a heartbeat, you're drowning in visions, a giant striding across the land, each step flattening valleys into basins. People scurrying into those hollows, building shelters where shadows fell. A kingdom forming beneath the footprint, carving stone into song. Then, fractures, silence, forgetting. The people fading until only echoes remained. The visions collapse and you stumble back, clutching your temples. Ow! Next time, maybe send a PowerPoint? The listener lowers his hand. You have seen. The kingdom lives in memory, not flesh, but memory must be carried, or it fades. You breathe hard, the stone and leaf in your pocket buzzing like bees. And you want me to carry it? Not want, need. A quirky tidbit drifts through your spinning head. In the 1800s, some scholars believed memory could be transferred by objects. Hair, handwriting, even the shape of skulls. Sounds ridiculous now, but you can't help thinking of the glowing leaf burning warm against your chest. Maybe those scholars weren't so far off, just missing the moss lanterns and crystal birds. The listener withdraws, folding his hands again. The path ahead will test you, not with strength, with remembering. You exhale, shaky. Great, I can barely remember where I put my keys. The sparrow chirps, as if to say, he's not kidding. And for the first time, you realize, the kingdom isn't testing whether you're brave. It's testing whether you can hold on to what it refuses to let be lost.
The listener's gaze lingers on you a moment longer, those steady, luminous eyes flickering faintly like candlelight fighting against a draft. Then, with a slow movement, it lifts its hand toward the chamber's far wall. At first, you see only blank stone. Then a line of light spreads across it, thin, delicate, like chalk catching moonlight. It curves and splits, forming what looks suspiciously like a doorway. The listener's voice resonates again, low and steady. Walk through. What you remember, you keep. What you forget, you lose. You rub the back of your neck. That's not ominous at all. No pressure. The sparrow flutters onto your head, talons digging into your hair like it's setting up permanent residence. Do not jest. Few pass through the chamber of remembering unchanged. The chamber of remembering, you mutter. Sounds like something Disney would make into an overpriced VR ride. You step toward the glowing outline. As you approach, the stone door doesn't open, it dissolves. The wall becomes mist, cool and pale, curling like steam. You inhale sharply. It smells faintly of rain on pavement and old books, both comforting and oddly specific. And then you step through. The first thing you notice is silence. Not the absence of noise, but a deep, intentional quiet, like the air is holding its breath. The second is light. Soft, silver, glowing without source, illuminating a circular room lined with mirrors. But these aren't mirrors, not exactly. Each one holds a scene. In the nearest frame, a memory of your own life. You're sitting at a kitchen table, yawning over a half-empty mug of coffee, doom-scrolling headlines. Another shows you fumbling your way through a first date, nervously making a joke that didn't land. You wince. Yep, that happened. Another, this one stranger, shows you in this very kingdom, only younger, like you'd been here before and somehow forgotten. The sparrow clucks softly. The chamber does not lie. It remembers all, even what you bury. You whisper, "Great, so it's part therapy session, part horror show." Historically, mirrors have been considered dangerous portals for memory. In Japanese folklore, mirrors weren't just tools, they held the soul. The ancient Romans believed breaking a mirror cursed you with bad luck, not because of superstition, but because the mirror was thought to fracture your very reflection, your essence. Scholars still argue whether these beliefs were born of genuine fear or just symbolic metaphors for self-awareness. Here, though, it feels literal. The mirrors don't just show you, they archive you. You walk slowly past the frames, resisting the urge to linger on your more embarrassing reels. Each reflection you pass ripples faintly, as if aware of your gaze. One shows a moment you don't consciously remember, standing as a child in a backyard, whispering to the dark as though someone was listening. Another shows you walking away from something, or someone, though the image is too hazy to place. And then the reflections shift. The mirrors no longer show you. They show the kingdom. People bustling through glowing streets, children chasing crystal birds, a queen with robes of silver moss speaking to a crowd with her hand raised. Then an absence. Streets empty, moss lanterns flickering, the kingdom folding inward, vanishing until only echoes remain. Your breath catches. The sparrow murmurs softer than before. The chamber tests not your strength, but your willingness to carry what was forgotten. One mirror pulls you forward more strongly than the rest. You step close, and the glass surface ripples like water. On the other side stands the giant. Not monstrous, not terrifying, just vast. Its foot lifts and falls, slow and deliberate, forming valleys with each step. And in the arch of one footprint, the kingdom begins. The giant pauses, turns its head, as if it knows you're watching. Its eyes glimmer, calm, endless. And for one absurd second, you feel as if it nods at you. You stumble back, heart thumping. Okay, did that mirror just wink at me? The sparrow's feathers fluff nervously. The chamber shows what was, what is, and what waits. Do not confuse them. Right, so it's not Netflix. It's more like spoiler alerts. A quirky tidbit floats in your head. Some anthropologists argue myths of giants might have begun when ancient people discovered fossilized bones of mammoths and misinterpreted them. Others argue giants were never about bones, but about scale, reminders of how small humans felt against mountains and storms. Scholars can't agree. Maybe both are true. But as you stand in a chamber that remembers everything, the question doesn't matter. The giant here is no metaphor. The mirrors fade, leaving you again in silver silence. The stone and leaf in your pocket thrum like small engines. And you realize, if memory itself is alive here, forgetting might be the only real death.
The mirrors dim until they're no more than faint outlines in the stone. You stand in the silence, waiting for the next test, or maybe for the sparrow to make another snide remark. Instead, the floor itself responds. The footprint tiles beneath your shoes flare brighter, then rearrange, patterns rippling outward in a spiral until the whole chamber feels like it's breathing. A section of the wall softens, stretching into another passageway. The sparrow leans close to your ear. You've been marked by the chamber. Now you must carry forward. You sigh. Carry forward? You sound like every motivational poster in a high school hallway. Still, you step into the new corridor. It's different from the others. The walls are lined with shelves, stone shelves, carved directly into the walls, holding objects of every shape and size. Some glow faintly, others sit quiet, dusty, ordinary. You pause at the first, a child's toy carved from wood, tiny wheels worn smooth by use. The moment you touch it, your mind floods with laughter, someone else's, high-pitched, joyful. A child racing the toy across a floor lit by moss light. You pull your hand back, startled, but the sound lingers in your ears. Memory objects, the sparrow explains, fragments anchored to things. The kingdom could not keep all its people, but it could keep what they touched. You glance around. So it's basically a cosmic lost and found. The sparrow bristles. More sacred than that. Every item remembers its keeper. Every keeper is remembered by an item. You wander deeper, running your fingers lightly over the artifacts. A silver comb with a single broken tooth. A clay cup, chipped, but still glowing faintly. A pair of boots with soles almost worn through. Each one radiates a story, a moment captured. Historically, this idea isn't new. In many traditions, objects are believed to carry memory. The ancient Egyptians filled tombs with personal belongings to ensure continuity in the afterlife. In Shinto practice, certain objects are thought to hold kami, spirit or essence, especially tools well used. Scholars debate whether these beliefs were symbolic attachments or genuine conviction. Here, though, you can feel the conviction humming in the soles of your shoes. You pause before a crystal bird, almost identical to the hummingbirds you saw earlier. But this one isn't flying. It's still, wings folded, carved from a single piece of quartz. When you touch it, your mind is flooded with the sensation of flying through a moss-lit cavern, wings beating, air rushing past. You stagger, clutching the shelf. Whoa! Okay, that was like a roller coaster. 10 out of 10 would not eat funnel cake afterward. The sparrow eyes you. You are glimpsing what is not yours. Be careful. Memory can drown. Noted, you mutter, rubbing your temples. Next time, maybe I'll stick to the cup. At the end of the hall, something different awaits. Unlike the smaller items, this is huge. A giant tablet leaning against the wall, etched with more spirals. It glows faintly, not with the gentle moss light, but with something deeper, older. The sparrow hops onto your shoulder, whispering as though in reverence. This is the archive stone. Few outsiders touch it. It contains the kingdom entire. You exhale slowly. And I just touch it. No safety manual? No waiver form? No reply. You press your palm against the stone. The world flips. Suddenly, you're not in the hall. You're everywhere. Streets, markets, rivers, the memory tree, all playing at once like every movie in existence projected onto your eyelids. Voices shout, laugh, sing, whisper. You feel the weight of centuries, of thousands of lives packed into your single skull. Your knees buckle, and you fall back, gasping. The stone and leaf in your pocket thrum violently, keeping you from shattering. The sparrow's voice pierces through the storm. Hold, do not let go, anchor yourself. You grit your teeth, focusing on one thought. I am me. I am me. I am me. The visions narrow, coalescing into a single clear image. The giant again. Its foot rises, falls, and in the hollow, a kingdom blooms. But this time the giant looks directly at you, and in its eyes you don't see menace, you see weariness. You whisper, trembling, "You're tired." The vision fades. You collapse onto the cold stone floor, breathing hard. The sparrow hops down beside you. You have touched the kingdom's root. Few survive it. You groan. "Cool. Can I get a badge or something? I survived the archive stone? Maybe a t-shirt?" No one laughs, but you swear the tablet hums faintly, like it's amused.
You stay seated on the cold floor for a while, chest rising and falling, the echoes of voices still threading faintly through your ears. The archive stone's hum lingers in your rib cage, like bass that won't fade after a concert. The sparrow waits, wings tucked neatly, as though it knows the weight of silence is part of the process. Finally, you drag yourself up. Okay, 10 out of 10 on the existential overload. What's next? Do I get a juice box? The sparrow tilts its head. Juice box? Never mind. Forget I said anything. Pretty sure forgetting is the opposite of the assignment here. The corridor continues beyond the archive stone, widening into what feels less like a hall and more like a canyon cut through luminous rock. The walls shimmer faintly, etched with lines of script that curl and bend into shapes you almost, but not quite, recognize. At intervals, alcoves open in the walls, each holding something stranger than the last. One cradles a crown made entirely of woven reeds, glowing faintly green. Another displays a cracked bell, silent yet vibrating faintly as you approach, like a phone buzzing in airplane mode. The sparrow flutters ahead. These are not memories of people. These are memories of the kingdom itself. It remembers not only lives, but seasons, not only voices, but silence. You pause before a long spiraled shell set into one alcove. When you touch it, your ears fill with the roar of the sea, though no water has touched this place in centuries. You blink. So basically this entire corridor is one big sensory museum? The sparrow doesn't disagree. This idea of landscapes carrying memory isn't new. Folklorists argue that sacred groves, rivers, and mountains weren't just worshipped for resources, they were seen as living witnesses. Some scholars point to Aboriginal songlines in Australia, maps encoded in song, tying geography to story so that memory could be carried across generations. Others debate whether the land itself was believed to hold memory, or whether the song simply carried human imagination. Here, though, it's obvious. The land has a memory, and it's showing you everything. You wander deeper, and the canyon narrows again. At the far end sits a door, not glowing this time, not misty, just wood. Plain, weathered wood cracked down the middle, as though it had been waiting centuries for you to knock. You lay a hand against it. The surface is warm, too warm, like someone has been leaning against it from the other side. The sparrow lands on the doorframe. Beyond this is the echo court. Those who once were here remain, not flesh, not shadow, echo. I raise an eyebrow. Let me guess, they want to chat about insurance plans. The sparrow's stare says, not the time. You push the door gently. It swings open without resistance. Inside is not a court at all, but a vast amphitheater. Rows upon rows of stone benches curve upward in spirals, all empty. In the center lies a pool, glassy and dark, reflecting the ceiling like a mirror. And then whispers. They rise slowly, dozens, then hundreds, overlapping, filling the chamber like a tide. Shapes form in the seats, luminous figures, translucent, like the listener, but less solid. They flicker in and out,
as though unsure whether they exist. You whisper back, "Oh, so it's a stadium full of ghosts?" One figure near the front leans forward. Its voice drifts across the chamber, clear and calm. "We remember. Do you?" You swallow hard. This feels bigger than a test. It feels like standing in front of a jury composed of everyone who's ever existed here. The leaf in your pocket glows faintly. The stone thrums in response. "I remember enough," I say quietly. Or at least I'm trying to. The whispers swell, some soft with approval, some sharp with doubt. The echoes don't agree with each other, because memory never does. The sparrow shifts uneasily on your shoulder. "They will press you now. Hold firm." Suddenly, the pool at the center ripples, and images rise like smoke. The kingdom thriving, the kingdom falling. The giant striding endlessly across forgotten fields. And under it all, a question hangs heavy in the air, unspoken but pulsing. Will you carry us, or will you leave us to fade? You take a deep breath, steadying your voice. "I'm not promising to be perfect, but I'll carry what I can, even if it's messy, even if I forget sometimes, because remembering a little is better than letting everything disappear." The amphitheater falls silent. Then one by one, the echoes bow their heads. The pool stills.
The echoes hold their bow for what feels like an eternity, shimmering faintly, as though deciding whether to dissolve or stay. The silence hums against your skin. Then, like mist caught in a sudden breeze, the figures rise and drift upward, thinning until the amphitheater is empty. The sparrow exhales a sound halfway between relief and awe. "They accepted your words. Few earn that grace." You rub your temples. Grace? That felt like giving the worst valedictorian speech ever. Could have used cue cards. Still, something shifts in the chamber. The air feels lighter. The benches no longer ominous, but solemn, like witnesses dismissed after a long trial. The pool at the center gleams faintly, and then parts, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward. Of course, another descent. The stairs curve tight and steep, lit only by the glow of your leaf and the faint echo still pulsing in your ears. At last they deposit you in a chamber unlike any you've seen, smaller, intimate, carved into a circle. At its center stands a pedestal, and upon it a single object, a sandal. You blink. Seriously? After all that drama, the grand relic is footwear? The sparrow perches on the pedestal's edge, feathers rustling. Not any footwear, the sandal of the giant, the trace of his step. You circle it slowly. It's enormous, of course, larger than your entire body, woven of strange fibers that shimmer faintly like threads of starlight. Despite its age, it's intact, though the surface shows wear. Imprints not of one foot, but many, as though countless people had climbed upon it over the centuries. The sparrow's voice lowers, reverent. "This is where memory anchors, the first step that birthed the kingdom. The echoes return here when they fade, whispering into the weave. Touch it, and you will know what the kingdom remembers of its beginning." You hesitate. Let me guess. Massive headache, visions, possibly a nosebleed. The sparrow only stares, which, unfortunately, is a yes. You place your hand against the sandal. The world explodes again. This time, though, it isn't chaos, it's clarity.
You see the giant striding across a wide, untouched land. Its steps are heavy, not cruel, not careless, just heavy. The ground splits, hollows forming in its wake. And into one such hollow, people gather. They do not curse the giant. They do not flee. They build. They weave homes of moss and crystal, carve songs into stone, raise children beneath the giant's tread. The kingdom is not an accident of destruction. It is a choice to live in what was left behind. And then, slowly, you see the fading. People drifting away, not from disaster, but from forgetting. One generation after another leaving, until the kingdom became more echo than flesh. You stagger back from the vision, chest heaving. The sparrow steadies itself on your shoulder. So, this whole place, it isn't about being crushed underfoot. It's about building in the hollow, living in what's left behind. The sparrow chirps, soft, almost approving. You understand more than most. A quirky tidbit slides into your dazed mind. In Norse sagas, some dwarves were said to live inside the footprints of gods. Not caves, not mountains, actual footprints left behind. Scholars debate whether this was metaphor, a way of explaining valleys and basins, or whether it was meant literally. Here, you realize metaphor and reality blurred into one. The sandal hums faintly under your fingertips, as if alive, and you feel it asking, not in words, but in pulse, whether you'll take the kingdom's memory out of this hollow, whether you'll keep the story alive when you wake up tomorrow and your phone blares reminders about dentist appointments and online bills. You whisper, half to yourself, half to the sandal, "I'll try. I mean, you've seen my memory of losing my keys, but I'll try." The sandal stills, as though satisfied. Behind you, the chamber wall begins to shift. Stone parts in a curve, revealing a narrow passageway, glowing with soft, golden light. The sparrow hops off the pedestal and flutters toward it. The kingdom opens the final path. Beyond lies the heart. You glance back at the sandal once more. For the first time, you don't see it as a remnant of something enormous. You see it as a reminder. People can build even in the spaces where giants once walked. You take a deep breath and follow the light.
The golden light grows brighter as you follow the narrow passage, warm and steady, like the soft glow of a nightlight in a childhood bedroom. For once, the walls don't press in or twist. They simply guide you forward, as if the kingdom itself has stopped testing and started welcoming. You step out into a vast cavern, and for the first time, you see something that makes you forget even the sandal: a living tree. Not carved, not remembered, not crystallized. Living. It rises from the center of the chamber, its trunk massive, bark shimmering silver with streaks of green. Branches spread wide, their leaves glowing faintly gold, each leaf shaped like a tiny footprint. The air smells of rain and cedar, soothing, thick, like you could fall asleep just standing here. The sparrow lands on a branch and bows its head. The heart tree, the first root, the last breath. You circle closer. Every step brings a new sensation. From one angle, the leaves seem to whisper. From another, you hear laughter. When you touch the trunk, warmth spreads up your arm, and suddenly you hear a song, dozens of voices woven into one harmony. It's not in any language you know, but the meaning hums in your bones. We remain because you remember. You step back, voice hushed. It's alive because people still tell its story? The sparrow nods. So long as one carries the tale, the kingdom stirs. Without memory, even roots crumble. The thought drifts to you. This isn't just myth. It's a living example of how stories work. Historically, every culture has had a heart tree, the Norse Yggdrasil, the Celtic oak groves, even the Bodhi tree where the Buddha found enlightenment. Some historians claim these were metaphors, central symbols for communities. Others argue they were real trees, infused with sacredness over generations. Here, the debate doesn't matter. This one is both real and symbolic, an anchor that ties story to soil. You press your forehead lightly against the bark. Instantly, a vision flares, not the giant this time, but yourself, walking away from the cavern carrying two glowing items, the stone and the leaf. You glimpse yourself telling someone the story, a friend, a stranger, maybe an audience half asleep with headphones on. And with every retelling, the heart tree glows brighter. You mutter, "Okay, that's eerily specific. Guess I'm officially drafted as the bedtime bard." The sparrow cocks its head. "You always were." The branches above rustle, and one leaf, shaped like a footprint, glowing faintly gold, loosens, spirals down through the air, and lands gently in your hand. Unlike the green leaf you found earlier, this one feels impossibly light, as though it might vanish if you breathe too hard. Yet it pulses warmly, in rhythm with your own heartbeat. You tuck it carefully into your pocket beside the others. All right, now I'm running out of pocket space. If a mystical acorn shows up, I'm in trouble. The sparrow chuckles, an actual chuckle, not just a chirp. 3 gifts, 3 anchors, enough to keep the kingdom alive in your steps. You blink. Wait, this was all preparing me? I'm not just sightseeing, I'm the next carrier? The sparrow's gaze softens. Who else listens still? Who else walks the forgotten path willingly? You hate how reasonable that sounds. At the base of the heart tree, roots part gently, forming a tunnel of light. It doesn't feel like stone or cavern anymore. It feels like dawn, like the edge of waking. The sparrow flutters onto your shoulder one last time. The journey nears its end. What remains is not test, but passage. You sigh. Right, the classic finale. Walk into the light. Hope it's not a dentist's waiting room on the other side. Still, your feet move forward, and with every step, the golden tunnel grows brighter, wrapping you not in pressure or weight, but in the softest kind of welcome. You realize with a shiver, it doesn't feel like leaving. It feels like being remembered.
The tunnel of light narrows until you have to duck, the glow pressing close around your shoulders like a blanket fresh from the dryer. It's warm, weightless, and impossibly soft, and you catch yourself wondering if this is what falling asleep inside a candle feels like. When you emerge, it isn't into stone at all. It's into sky. You're standing on a ledge that overlooks everything, the whole hidden kingdom stretched out below, glowing faintly in its moss-lit brilliance. The crystal river winds like a silver thread. The memory tree rises far away like a quiet flame, and the heart tree behind you hums with steady strength. But above all, you see the imprint of the giant step. From this vantage, it's undeniable. The hollow curves inward like a great footprint, and within it, life has blossomed for centuries. The sparrow perches beside you, feathers shimmering faintly in the golden air. You have seen what lies beneath the step. Now you must decide how to walk forward. The gifts in your pocket, the stone, the green leaf, the golden leaf, seem to pulse together, syncing with your heartbeat. You take them out, hold them in your palm, and for the first time they don't just glow, they glow in rhythm. You laugh softly. Oh, great. I'm basically a walking lava lamp now. The sparrow doesn't scold. It just watches. You sit down on the ledge,
legs dangling over the kingdom. For a moment, you let yourself imagine what it must have been like to live here when it was full. Markets buzzing, songs echoing, children racing wooden toys across the glowing floor. The echoes you met in the amphitheater were fragments, but here, with the gifts in your hand, you can almost feel them breathing again. It hits you then. The kingdom doesn't want a savior. It doesn't want someone to rebuild it stone by stone. It wants a memory keeper, a storyteller, someone who carries it in words, in whispers, in bedtime tales that drift into dreams. You nod slowly, half to yourself. All right, I'll carry you. Even if I'm terrible at remembering where I parked, I'll carry you. The sparrow leans close. Then the kingdom is safe as long as your voice is safe. The golden tunnel behind you begins to fade, the light dimming as if it knows your time here is closing. You rise, pocket the gifts, and give the kingdom one last look. The sparrow's eyes gleam. When you wake, you will doubt. You will wonder if this was dream. But carry the tale. Each telling is proof. Each listener is a root. You smile faintly. So you're saying bedtime stories actually matter? The sparrow tilts its head. They always did. And then, with a flick of wings, it vanishes into the golden air, leaving only the faintest whisper of feathers. The ledge tilts gently beneath your feet, not like an earthquake, but like a cradle rocking. Your eyelids grow heavy, the kingdom blurring as though slipping underwater. And just before darkness closes in, you swear you hear 1,000 voices at once. We remain, because you remember.
The light softens now, slower and slower, like dusk settling across an old town. The cavern, the echoes, the trees, all of it drifts into the gentlest of fades, leaving you wrapped not in stone or shadow, but in stillness. Your breath steadies. Each inhale moves like a tide washing over sand. Each exhale like the hush that follows rain. There is no hurry here, no footsteps pressing down, just space, just quiet. The gifts you've carried, the stone, the leaves, the memory, no longer feel heavy in your pocket. They are weightless, feather light, resting like reminders rather than burdens. You don't need to hold them tightly. They will remain, just as the kingdom remains, in the background hum of your thoughts. The sparrow's absence doesn't feel like loss. It feels like calm, as though its voice, its steady presence, lingers at the edge of your hearing, woven into the soft quiet that fills this final moment. Even the giant step no longer seems enormous or threatening. It feels instead like rhythm, like the slow beat of a heart, the steady march of time, something not to fear, but to rest within. So let the echoes fade now. Let the kingdom settle into stillness. You don't need to carry every word of it awake. The story has already taken root in you, gently, like a seed waiting for tomorrow. And as your breath slows further, eyes softening shut, feel the ledge beneath you rock once more, like a cradle, like a lullaby, guiding you into the deepest, safest sleep, safest sleep, safest sleep, safest sleep.